Hey fiddlers, welcome to this month's video. Today we are going to take a deep dive into double stops. If you have ever wrestled with double stops, you are not alone. They can be a beast. I mean, you gotta hit both strings at the same time, you gotta make them sound not super crunchy, you gotta get them in tune. It's a lot to ask. So today I'm going to give you 3 don'ts for playing double stops, 3 things not to do, but they're going to help you create a really beautiful sound when you play your double stops. I'm also going to give you some double stop exercises that will help you take your double stops to the next level. So if you like sheet music for those exercises, or if you'd even like to vote for topics for videos like this one, check out the link in the description for more. Okay, let's dive right in. So a double stop is basically the closest we get to playing a chord on the fiddle. We're playing 2 strings at once with our bow. So we've got 3 options here: G and the D string, D and A and E. And then we can do all sorts of fingerings to create other chords. But we do run into a lot of problems playing double stops. One of them is it's difficult to play both strings at once. To make sure that your bow is landing evenly on both strings, not emphasizing one or the other. So like... Another thing we get is these sort of crunchy, like annoyingly loud double stops, like... We've all been there. So our first double stop don't of the day is don't try to control your bow. And this might seem sort of counterintuitive. Like, if I want to hit both strings, don't I have to be really careful about it and make sure that the bow is finding that plane between the 2 strings? I mean, it's not a bad idea when you're first playing double stops to take a look, make sure that your bow is about evenly on both strings. But what's going to help is actually not trying to control your bow so much, but relaxing your arm so that your bow will more naturally just find that plane that the 2 strings create. Your bow kind of naturally wants to land on both strings if you just leave it to its own devices. So if you relax your arm, and even sometimes it's helpful to look away or close your eyes while you're doing this, often your bow will more easily find that plane. It'll rest on the 2 strings. So you can give that a try. You can just experiment with closing your eyes, looking away, whatever you need to do, and just getting the feel for where that bow is gonna land. Double stop don't number 2 is don't press on the bow. You don't want to be exerting too much extra pressure. Sometimes we think that to hit both strings at the same time, we actually have to press down harder on the bow. It's just kind of a natural inclination. But that's when you get a sound that you don't really want. Not only is that going to make that tone kind of crunchy and weird, but you're also going to get sort of out of tune double stops if you're pressing on the bow. Oddly enough, the more pressure you exert on the bow, the more it's going to bend the sound. So instead of these nice in tune relaxed double stops, you get... So again, the best way to practice this, just really relax your hand. One thing you want to make sure of is that you're not leaning too hard on your pointer finger here, but really just kind of letting the bow float across the strings. And our third and final double stop don't is don't be timid. Just don't be afraid of your double stops. I once watched a workshop by a fiddler who said, "You want to master your fiddle. Do not let your fiddle be the master of you." And honestly, it's a helpful mindset because the violin can sense fear. If we approach our double stops with kind of this timid, like, lack of confidence, we're either going to be too light or we'll have a lot of tension in our arm, and neither one is going to result in a good sound. When you have tension or timidity, it gets into your bow and it manifests in a not so great tone. So really that mindset of confidence and not hesitating is going to really help your double stops sound good. That's partly because when you approach your bowing with confidence, there's a tendency for that to even out the speed at which your bow is moving. So rather than like, you get, which creates a better, smoother sound. You also tend to get more consistency and pressure. Rather than that, you get a consistent consistent medium pressure. So the commonality between these three don'ts of double stops is one double stop do, which is relax. And those of you who've been watching my fiddle videos for a while know I'm big on that. Relaxing your arm will allow your bow to just find that plane. It'll also keep you from pressing so you get that nice, smooth, floaty sound. And it keeps you from that hesitation that can create inconsistencies in your sound. All right, so those are my tips for you, but I will also say the biggest thing I can recommend is to spend a lot of quality time with double stops. And I'm gonna give you some exercises to help you do that. The more time you spend playing double stops, the more it's just gonna become second nature. It's very natural that when we start to make a good sound that we like on the fiddle, we're very naturally going to learn how to repeat that. And so honestly, the more sounds you're making on the fiddle, the more opportunity you have to make the right kinds of sounds and then learn to repeat those sounds. So the more time you spend doing double stops, you're just going to get the sense of what the right pressure and what the right speed is. Okay, lastly, I'm going to give you a couple of double stop exercises to help you practice them. The first is just open string double stop exercises. I recommend starting with just nice long double stops on the G and D, then on the D and A, then on the A and E, then going back down to D and A, and just repeat that a bunch of times. Then you can start doing different rhythms. So I like to do a real rhythm, which would be 8/8 notes. And you can do that on all the strings. So that starts to get you used to using them in the context of a tune. There's a lot of yard work going on. Then you can even do a jig rhythm, so something like this. It's 6/8 time. So doing that on open strings eliminates the variables of having to use any left hand stuff. But for working on double stop intonation, one of my favorite exercises is double stop scales. So there are three of these you can do. You can do a G scale, D scale, or A scale. And for each of these, what you're doing is you're playing a 1-octave scale, but you're playing 2 strings the whole time. So for example, a normal G scale, 1 octave, would go like this, starting on your open G. And when we do a double stop scale, we're playing those exact same notes, but we're playing them with our bow on both strings the entire time. So the bow plays the G and the D throughout the scale. So when we're playing these notes on the G string, we're playing the open D above. Then when we play these notes on the D string, we're playing the open G below. Play these really slowly, and with each note, take some time just to listen and slide it into place if it's a little out of tune. So that's gonna really help with your intonation on your double stops. The very last thing that I recommend is taking a tune that you're working on and try putting double stops all over the place. It helps again to play the tune really slowly. So for example, if you're playing a tune like Angeline the Baker, it's in D major, you can put an open D below the tune for much of it. So it goes. And by adding those drone notes, you get a little bit more comfortable with those double stops. All right, so those are my tips for double stops. I hope that you found this helpful. There's obviously so much more that you can learn about double stops and all sorts of ways to make them sound good, but I hope that this gives you a little bit to work with. Again, if you want sheet music for my double stop exercises, check out the link in the description, where you can also vote for topics for videos like this. And please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd love to see you guys around here again. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in and happy fiddling. Bye guys.